Well, today we have two wonderful poets with us. Bill Miner, who's enjoying a return engagement with us, and Buff Whitman-Bradley, who has not read with us before, and he's joining us today. Each of our poets is going to read for 20 to 25 minutes. It's going to be a terrific afternoon. I would invite you to sit back and simply have a cup of coffee or a glass of wine if it's late enough in the day for you, or early enough, whatever. And just enjoy this afternoon of really, really fine poetry. Our first poet that's going to read for us, or who's going to read for us, is Bill Miner, and then Buff will follow. Bill Miner is a local poet who's been here with us for quite some time. He was originally trained as a visual artist at Pratt in New York, and then at UC Berkeley. And he created woodcut prints and paintings, which he exhibited at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts and the Smithsonian and some other museums. Bill, not to be narrow in his focus and his living of life, has translated the text of modern Greek, Russian, and Japanese poems. And Bill is fluent in Russian and has done some studying there. He included woodcuts that he'd made with his translations, and then he began to write poetry when he was a grad student in language arts at San Francisco State in 1963. And in 1974, he produced his first book titled Pacific Grove. It contained both his poems and also his woodcut prints. And since that time, Bill has gone on and produced a number of books, most recently Some Grand Dust, for which he was a finalist for the Benjamin Franklin Award, Gypsy Wisdom, UN Selected Poems, and also Another Morning, poems by William Miner. He was the first grand prize winner in a national essay contest, What Music Means to Me, sponsored by the Retail Print Music Dealers Association. And a recent YouTube video is of Bill with original music that he did and features his reading of his poem, Another Morning, is available on YouTube, and you can Google him, Bill Miner, YouTube, and see that. And I would also add that Bill is an outstanding musician. He taught here on the Monterey Peninsula for a number of years, 25 years or so, Bill, I think would be the right way to say it. And he is a fine musician. And when we were able to meet in person, Bill would grace us not only with his poetry, but his music. It's a little difficult to do that in these Zoom era times, but we should know that Bill is a man of many, many talents. And it's terrific to have him here with us this afternoon. So Bill, over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Bob, for a very generous introduction. And thank you to the Monterey Bay Poetry Consortium for having us read. I also want to thank my friend Mark Hughes, who's been schooling me in the ways of Zoom, with which I was not very acquainted. And I'm very grateful to be reading with Buff Whitman-Bradley. We met 46 years ago at the Foothill Writers Conference in Los Altos Hills. And at that time, he was a young man with infinite potential promise as a poet, which he has fulfilled. And so we somehow magically got back together again and decided I should give a reading. I'm going to jump right in. Names. Having just watched Tarzan the Ape Man, 1932, and Tarzan and His Mate, 1934, my wife of 60 years and I have begun to communicate in a unique new way. Me, I say, tapping her lightly on the chest, and no, she says, I'm me. Me, I say, tapping her on the chest again, because it feels so good that way. And she says, no, again, I'm me, you. You, I say, tapping my own chest. And she says, no, you are you and I am me. And just when it seems we are finally getting somewhere, after 60 years together, I say, me Tarzan, you Jane. And she laughs and says, tapping my chest, not quite so lightly, not Tarzan, Bill. And totally confused now, I say, you, Bill. And she says, you, Bill, me, Betty. And I say, love? And smiling, she says, yes, love. I say, me? And she says, yes, you. Me too, I say, you. And finally, we agree on something. Tarzan, Bill, it's all the same, just as it is with Betty Jane. For 60 years of swinging on vines and trees and our very own forest has taught us there is so much more to love than you can find in fancy words or any name. Genesis. All our lives begin and end with music. The sea itself was silent, sleeping, and then awoke in song. Or maybe the goddess Aphrodite, rising from foam, sang us into birth, so she might find release from her own longing. However we began, perhaps as simple chemistry, a primal soup that came aground to sing of love. We began and we shall end as music. For our story can only be told with faith that finds its voice in song. Actually, I've set that to music. Those two poems are from a book. I'll hold it up. Another Morning, which is available at Finishing Line Press and at Amazon.com. I'm going to jump now two poems about, I put down the word adventure. I'll use it. My adventure with cancer. One poem is straightforward and the other one is playful. My easy chair. And there's an epigraph by one of my favorite writers, William Least Heat Moon. Where's the traveler who doesn't also gallivant about from time to time in the arms of a favorite easy chair? I've traveled far, from here to there and back again, to the there of Paris, Moscow, Tokyo, Athens, San Miguel de Allende, Boston, and Odessa. Everywhere, only to reside now that my body lacks mobility. I have, as a side effect from cancer and 9 weeks of daily radiation therapy, chronic vertigo, 24/7, which does not make it easy for me to stand on my own anymore. I reside now in this, my favorite living room, comfortable, egg crate sculpted foam cushion easy chair. I enjoy the comforting presence close by of the piano which once sustained my life, but which I can no longer play for more than 15 or 20 minutes before the vertigo takes over. Yet I worship the easy chair because my Lord and I can both reside there. And I ask for nothing but to share God's poverty, knowing I deserve just a small portion of grace, which is enough. Grateful for what I got, the joyous roots of love from which all things grow with a weight of gladness, because I no longer live outside the simple gift of love. It is useless to look for what is everywhere, Thomas Merton wrote. It is hopeless to hope for what cannot be gained because you already have it. I find my hermitage at home. I now spend most of my time in this sanctuary with inviting upholstered arms, an easy chair in which I sit at ease and read, listen to music endlessly, and even doze off to sleep on occasion. The hermit in each of us can hear the heartbeat of the entire world. I didn't want to take myself too seriously, so I thought I'm going to have fun with my afflictions. So here's a lighter, humorous, I hope, approach. Vertigo, or vestibular neuritis. I hate to brag, but I have a totally unique perspective, one of a kind, because nothing in my universe, 24/7, chronic, constantly, is ever stationary. Still, would you care to join me in a perpetual spin, dance, a floating whirl, swirl, rotation, the risk of which is a final, fatal fall? Vestibular neuritis, chronic vertigo, every minute, every hour, every day, the terror of which is inexplicable to anyone who's never been forced to confront it on a daily basis. So how can I make this fun? Step into my head, singing Bob Dylan, say, it's all right, Ma. Say, okay, I've had enough. What else can you show me? And if my thought dreams could deceive, they'd probably put my head in a guillotine. But it's all right, Ma. It's life, and life only. This is no Playland Carnival Carousel, a roundabout merry-go-round amusement park ride, not even the most outrageous roller coaster. King Ka, a steel-launched coaster located at Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey. The tallest roller coaster in the world, with the capability to launch its cars at 128 miles per hour in 3.5 seconds. But that's child's play compared to what I've got for a ride each day. So I take to my favorite living room leisure chair, where safe, contained, secure, I watch an endless orgy of Fred Astaire films. Fred dancing with a bevy of graceful partners, Ginger, Rita Hayworth, Eleanor Powell, Vera Ellen, Sid Charisse, Leslie Caron, and Audrey Hepburn too. And I can watch this man and his women in their well-orchestrated balance systems dance endlessly on and on and on. Asked how dancers felt about Astaire, the great Mikhail Baryshnikov said, it's no secret. We hate him. He gives us complexes because he's too perfect. His perfection is an absurdity that's hard to face. Having lost my own balance system, I can watch him, even the way he walks, for hours. How to describe my own experience? When I try to focus on a common object, it's no longer there. It's everywhere. Because I myself am everywhere, dissolving, reuniting, evanescing, melting, merging again like elementary particles in a bevitron. Nausea is a counterpart, a companion to vertigo, but don't be overly concerned. You won't throw up. You'll just feel as though you will. And that's comforting, nice to know, especially in public, dressed in your best threads or clothes. But you may not get invited to so many dinner parties anymore. You better hang on, however, to whatever you can, as if in love with any object that will keep you upright. Hold tight to one another, folks. We're all just blinking stars in the cosmos, God's favorite set of dice. I need you, friends. But will you please, for just one moment, will you please stand still? Let's all sing along with Tom Waits. Oh, but you got to hold on. You got to hold on, baby. You got to hold on. Take my hand. I'm standing right here. You got to hold on. Hold on to whatever or whomever you can. But for dear life, hold on. And then recline, close your eyes, and lie as still as you can, or as long as you can, before you join the spinning world again. I had a privilege in this next poem. I was present in 1990 at the Monterey Jazz Festival when the great Stan Getz and Kenny Barron played together. And Stan Getz died 1 year later. But I wrote this poem. This is a short version of a longer poem. Listening to Stan Getz and Kenny Barron together. And this is dedicated to Dane Survey. It's as if they reside in separate rooms. The ears of Getz perched, listening, always listening. His soul anticipating every note that Kenny Barron is about to play, while he himself constructs his own riffs in a space apart. And Barron does the same with Getz from his own room. Yet they are musically Siamese twins, separated at birth, united in song. Aligned in surreal synchronicity, serendipity, the result, a thing of beauty, zany, quirky, random, but sublime. Such artful interaction arrives of its own accord. This is a piece I did see set to music, and it's a song. It's on YouTube. It's called "My Fingers Refuse to Sleep," and it goes like this. My fingers refuse to sleep. Like a blind man, they want to curl up with that good book, the braille of your body, all night long. Like a choir of monks, they would sing your loveliness, your complete loveliness, everything about you, all night long. I envy my fingers, am truly jealous of them. Jealous as I've discovered I am, and ask them to tell me all about you, to recite your name, your taste and scent and touch. Now that I'm without you all night long. And this is another musical piece. Here's the book it's from, Gypsy Wisdom. And this is called My Father Sings. It's a prose poem. I grew up in a household where music was second nature, always present, ingrained. My mother could sight ring well and played not only classical pieces on the piano, Schumann, Liszt, Chopin, but show tunes. The full range of Gershwin, Cole Porter, Rodgers and Hart, Irving Berlin, which she and I sang together. The most joyous musical occasion was on holidays. My uncle Max Gale, who ran an orchestra agency in Detroit, and was an excellent stride pianist, came out to the house, along with his brother Bill, who played fine alto sax and clarinet, and Herbie the drummer, and Max's beautiful wife, ex-Billy Rose Aqua Queen, Aunt Betty, along with their 7 kids, all of whom played musical instruments and sang. And we all took turns as if we'd drawn numbers at Baskin-Robbins performing. My own musical efforts began at age 12 with a homemade set of drums, the snare made of half a Quaker Oats box with tissue paper taped to the bottom and crossed by lines of thin wire. One cymbal was the lid from a number 10 can of peas. The other, smaller, was from Campbell's soup, cream of mushroom, I believe. I made a set of wire brushes out of the bristles I plucked from my mother's prized broom. And on this crude, strictly homegrown kit, I accompanied Teddy Wilson recordings. My early years have been homegrown, and there's no place quite like home in which to make music. The event that best defines what music means to me took place when I returned home for my parents' 60th wedding anniversary. Because my plane was late arriving, my mother had stepped out to do some shopping, and my father answered the door. He did not know who I was. Following an aneurysm operation, his mind failing, most of his memory shot. When I told him who I was, his son, he smiled. Well, Dor will be sorry she missed you, he said. Dor is my mother, short for Dorothy. I told my father I'd hang around a little longer in the house I'd grown up in to see if Dor returned. He smiled, but no longer that famous smile that could charm the pants right off a snake. It was a genial, wistful smile now, puzzled but benign. I showed him photographs of my own children, now adults, but each time I turned a page, he forgot what or whom he'd just seen. I said that I'd made them just as he made me. He nodded his head slowly, appraising the situation. First, you made me, Dad. Then I made them. When my mother returned, and once we got caught up on recent events, beyond who had manufactured whom in the past, she excused herself to prepare dinner in the kitchen. My father has always enjoyed hearing me play the piano, so I slipped over to the spinet on which I'd learned, and I began to play Long Ago and Far Away. I do not recall my father singing during those sessions in the past when we all gathered around the piano, but he did show his rich appreciation by way of tap dancing on smooth tiles in front of the fireplace, rendering his first-rate soft shoe. One leg drawn back, tentative, sweeping, the other teasing the carpet, then both legs sliding smooth, caressing the marble, transforming that firm grid of tile to sandpaper while I played Tea for Two. Play the ditty, son, he said, smiling in that way that everyone agreed was like music itself. Infectious. Yet now as I played, a miracle took place. This man who seemed so lost to both time and even space outside his own home began to sing. At first, I thought I was imagining things, yet I distinctly heard his voice quavering, weak but tender, vocalizing in time with the music. Chills run up and down my spine. Aladdin's lamp is mine. And chills did run up and down my spine. And I nearly burst into tears, tears of sorrow, tears of joy for the persistence of human memory. the indestructibility of human feeling. From what depths of being had he pulled out these words? From how many nights of song? What geologic layers had been shattered like the miracle of that flower, the saxifrage, which burst through rock? I knew for whom he was singing. It was not for the son he had once made or helped make. It was for the woman in the kitchen, preparing dinner with a percipience, poised prayer, compassion, and inherent dignity she extends to nearly all that she does. For my mother, my father was singing, just one look and then I knew that all I longed for long ago was you. I'm going to skip over to two last poems. These written for my wife, Betty, a wife of 65 years, and both of these are available in the book Another Morning. Another morning. What once came with ease has been placed on hold. But I still like to get up in the morning to a woman and a world I'm lucky to discover on another day of sunlight or rain. I take to my feet and the effort feels good, albeit cautious and slow. Yet the trek to the kitchen is all it takes to make me grateful to find the woman whose heart I still love. We no longer need to count the years we have been together because duration that makes up this moment belongs to us alone, as one another. So we sit together now, and you read a book, and I think whatever thoughts I can, nothing resolved but your presence here with me in this sacred room, a simple kitchen where we live to love for one more day. This is a single section from a longer poem called The Sounds of Hawaii. And I'll end with this poem. This perfect place, gentle, isolated island, Kauai, our sacred second home. But just how sacred is it? The wild winds suggest, don't ask. We shall make believers of you on our own. And they resume their sublime symphonic flux, passages with a gentle, assuaging asylum of slack key guitar, followed by a storm, a dramatic outrage worthy of Hector Berlioz at his savage best. Strange bedfellows, perhaps, but not in the world of music, where the most brazen contrast sits side by side with the sexiest juxtaposition. A quantum condition in which point-like particles or waves align themselves. Strings or membranes of sound and bird calls mix with the subtle speech of fronds. Music rich with a song of space and time. The ancient kings of Kauai chose the mouth of the Wailua River, where Betty and I once lived, as their home. one of the two most sacred spots in all the Hawaiian Islands. Wailua Nui Hoano, a great sacred Wailua, where two birthstones mark the spot, stone shaped like the back of a woman and her spread legs awaiting the birth of kings in a house of grass, such as that Betty and I once lived in. But ours was not grass, but woods. Was Hawaii sacred? Was Kauai sacred? The island Kauai was ruled by Moi, kings or sovereigns who owned all of the land in sight, who possessed the power of life and death over all their domain. Lesser chiefs could only commune with them at night. But kings who could make an exception and cohabit with commoners, such as Betty and me, if they chose to. Favored subjects who did not prostrate themselves at will or pay the price of death if they crossed the sovereign shadow. And so we return safely to Kauai after 60 years to refresh our sacred roots and accept whatever the weather allows. And we listen with delight to the island's epic concert and travel up the Waialua River just below the King's Highway, our shack, long gone. But Kauai's destiny evident in every sound around us. We count our many blessings one by one, two embodied spirits still in love with a destiny that's all our own, but shaped by the winds of Kauai years and centuries ago. At home, in our own Garden of Eden, our very own gracious kingdom come. We lie in bed at night and watch and listen to the now mild winds make dancing cubist shadows of the Japanese elm tree just outside the window. A soft rain begins to fall with a free and easy drift of the soothing music of slack key guitar. And soon we are nested and softly reside within the bliss of wind-swept island sleep. Thank you very much. Wonderful to see you all the people I love. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. That was just wonderful. I mean, you took us from Detroit and the music and jazz and jamming together to Kauai, to the magic there, and to all the things you do in your life. I loved you brought us home to the simple beauty of the sacred room of the kitchen, and then to the magic of your love with Betty, and then that magic of your experience with your dad. Thank you. It was a wonderful time. Thank you so very much. Well, the magic continues now. We'll move on to our next poet, and we'll enjoy some more wonderful poetry. Buff Whitman-Bradley lives up in the Bay Area in Marin County. He's a California poet whose most recent book, At the Driveway Guitar Sale, Poems on Aging, Memory, Mortality, was published last spring by Main Street Drag Publishers. Buff has two books forthcoming this year, The Heron Could Be Lost from Finishing Line Press, and What Will We Sing from Kelsey Books. So he's had a very busy, productive time during these past few years. Buff podcasts poems on aging at thirdactpoems.podbean.com, and I'd urge you to check them out. He's got a lot of wisdom in there for us. As I said, he lives north of San Francisco in Marin County with his wife, Cynthia. And it's wonderful to have you with us, Buff. So over to you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Am I visible? I'm not, I don't quite see where I am here. I'm visible to everybody, right?
Yes, you're
Okay.
highly
All right.
visible.
Well, it's quite a courageous act, I have to say, to be following Bill Miner. So I applaud myself for that, for my temerity here. Bill, that was just wonderful. And not only do I admire all of the ways that you bring art to the world, I admire your spirit, a spirit that just keeps going and going and is full of who knows what, music and poetry and humor and love. So what an honor it is to be reading with Bill Miner. And thank you to the Poetry Consortium for inviting me to read here today. So I'm going to be reading poems today from two books at the Driveway Guitar Sale. They're poems about aging. The Heron Could Be Lost, which is a forthcoming book from Finishing Line Press. So I'll start with poems from At the Driveway Guitar Sale. The first one is called Old Dogs. I sit by the creek and throw sticks for the great-hearted golden retriever. He splashes through the water like the puppy he was, up onto the opposite bank to fetch each one, but he brings it back only part way. He has done this before, and he drops it onto the ground out of my reach. Then he stands over it, panting, triumphant, looking me straight in the eye and daring me to come and take it. And if I try, he will snatch the stick away just as I am about to grab it. But today, I have outsmarted him. I have done this before and brought along many throwing sticks. And so after each one he fails to return, I pick up another from my stash, which I throw, and he fetches and delivers to where he has dropped the others. As his pile grows larger and mine grows smaller, I watch the sunlight coming in great broad sheets through the redwoods and listen to the creek tell the stories it has always told. And when I throw the last stick, we both realize it is time to go. I stand up, he bounds across the creek one last time, and we head back down the trail. Two old dogs, no new tricks. We all know what a rascal memory can be, and the way we all have different ways of dealing with those moments of lapse and forgetting. This poem is called The Job of Memory. When I cannot recall the title of a book or the name of a lake in northern Minnesota, I try to resist the Google temptation and instead set my aging neurons to work doing what they were hired to do. What they lack these days in alacrity, they make up for with tenacity as they methodically search every closet and cabinet and shelf in my brain, often for long minutes, even hours, while I fidget and squirm and stew with mounting frustration. But almost invariably, one of them will finally burst into my office, waving a piece of paper and shouting, "We found it, boss!" And when that happens, there is great rejoicing in all the cubicles, dancing on the desks, tossing confetti. Everyone's so happy to still have a job. This poem is called The Next Small Thing. Unlike the next big thing that everyone is waiting for to revolutionize for the umpteenth time the way we conduct the same old business, the next small one, a whiff of onion grass, the whispered arrival of light from the Pleiades, the streak and cry of a kingfisher above a pond, will change nothing at all. although it will encourage you to unhook that bucket of lead that hangs from the chain in your heart and to stop for a while by the side of the road for a cool drink of water. Here's a poem called As I Stand Here Stirring Oatmeal. I stand here stirring oatmeal, the house filled with sunlight and Brandenburg concertos, musing about Herr Bach and the enduring legacy of sublime music he left to the world. I stand here stirring oatmeal for our breakfast because my wife has assured me that my oatmeal is far superior to hers, a compliment to which I am eagerly susceptible. I do have a graceful way of scattering the stone ground oats with the merest pinch of salt into the copper pot's boiling water and adroitly swirling the simmering grains with an old wooden spoon to create a silky gruel that is a profound pleasure to consume. As I stand here stirring oatmeal, I wonder if Johann Sebastian ever made oatmeal for his 22 kids. And if so, could it possibly have been as melodious as mine? I will leave behind no great accomplishments, a few companionable poems, and the fading memories of those who loved me in spite of my faults and flaws. But if there is ever a hall of fame for the ordinary arts of daily life, I believe I may have a chance of being memorialized there for the peerless perfection of the artisanal porridge I whip up, steaming hot, smooth and creamy, no lumps. I just got finished reading a new collected poems of Du Fu. It's been expanded from the old, I can't remember who the translator is now, but it was a wonderful collection. So here's a poem. I'm particularly fond of Du Fu, and here's a poem called Reading Du Fu. Poor old guy, plagued by misfortune, ill health, repeated separations from his family, dreaming of a life of renown in the capital and the respect and admiration of his peers, of fine clothes, a grand house, tables heaped with food, thick blankets for bitterly frigid nights. Poor old guy, life in tatters, wandering across battlefields strewn with the dead, growing old and infirm as he watches his ambitions dissolve into the mist that rises off the Yangtze, that obscures the towering peaks of the Three Gorges. Poor old guy, full of laments and regrets about the life might have been, about his gray hair and his bent and ailing body, holding onto his goosefoot cane to keep from falling off the earth. Poor old guy, 1,300 years later, still rueing his failures, still seeking out friends for long philosophical nights of conversation and spring wine, still tracking the flights of cranes and wild geese across the winter sky, still hunkered down in his star-filled boats, adrift in eternity. Here's a poem about a time I had to spend in bed with pneumonia. It's called Bedridden. In bed with pneumonia, unable to read or watch television or even to lift my head, all I can do is count my breaths, which after several minutes I gather into a bundle, wrap in colorful tissue and bright ribbon and place in the corner near my closet. After that, another bundle and another one, piling them up throughout the day until evening when it comes time to sleep. And the stack has nearly reached the ceiling. Then, as I lean over to switch off my bedside lamp, rather than lamenting that I have passed an entire day accomplishing nothing, I take a moment to regard those gaily wrapped bundles of breath I have made, and I say to myself, nice work. Here's a poem called Tidy Up. A Zen master of my acquaintance once said that when he died, he wished to leave no trace. All the backpackers I know say the same thing about their sojourns in the wild. No messes, no unfinished business. It's a good idea to tidy up before all our departures, and all our little departures and our impending big one. Douse the coals, strew the ashes, bag any food scraps, bits of foil, paper, and cardboard. Erase all footprints. Be forthright. Apologize. Forgive. So that what remains of us in memory is not a squalid little campsite full of trash and debris and tangled disputes that will cause great consternation or anguish to those left behind, but is instead an expanse of mountain grasses beside a high, cold tarn where ones who loved us might like to pass a little time, pitch a tent, build a fire. Here's a poem about falling down, which I have a lot of experience with. So it's called Trip. In mid-trajectory, you will find that you have ample time for examining your existence, for contemplating a new career, for considering alternative economic systems, for reflecting on the ancient verities of the human spirit, for pondering your current predicament and puzzling out what it was exactly that launched you into free fall. You may experience the pleasure of near weightlessness as you hurtle through space, or notice small details you might have overlooked under other circumstances, the uneven variations of color in the approaching terracotta tiles, the fugitive grains of rice and cereal flakes lurking in the grout. And you may be inclined to think, well, this isn't so bad, about your spontaneous jaunt from vertical to horizontal, until the sudden rude encounter with implacable solidity ruins your trip. I don't want to run over time, so how do you?
You're doing well, Buff.
Okay, let me know. I mean, raise a flag or something, because I'm sorry, I forgot to look when I started it.
No worries. You've got another 5-10 minutes.
Okay. This poem is from the book called The Heron Could Be Lost. It's called In the Gloaming. The sun is sinking below the hills, but we can still see its light on the tall trees across the way, like a departing lover in an old movie waving a handkerchief from the last car on the train. We know that she won't stay away for good, that after the film is over, she and her sweetheart will find each other again, and realizing how foolish they'd been to think they did not belong together, they will remain inseparable for 60 years, and then they will die sweetly, hours apart. The sunlight keeps climbing the trees as a gentle darkness spreads below throughout the neighborhood, blessing the roofs of houses and garden sheds, whispering goodnight to parked cars and backyards and loyal old mailboxes. And now we are immersed in the gloaming, the tenderly melancholy hour when we find ourselves able to regard the errors and failures of the past with more sadness than blame, with more empathy than accusation, with more forgiveness of ourselves and others than sometimes seems possible in the unrelenting glare of noon or the snarling insomnia of midnight. Constellations begin to appear in their usual places. Lights come on in houses up and down the street. The air grows cooler. Crickets plead more and more urgently for love, and everyone we have ever been comes home to sit quietly with us on twilight's front porch. Okay, I'll read two more. This one is called If the Stars Had Voices. If the stars had voices, they would surely sound like cricket song, throbbing with passion and yearning and tinged with melancholy as summer's blue canoe drifts toward autumn. If the stars had voices, we would sit every evening out on the front porch to hear the fervent, achy airs just as we do now in these tail end days of August, talking quietly about today's heat and tomorrow's, and enjoying the hubbub and spectacle of whole galaxies of crickets twinkling in the grasses. And this last one, for the last one, I go back to the first book that I read from at the driveway guitar sale. This one is called Struck by Starlight. If I should die before you, in the moments when you are most sad, try to think about how the greater part of me, that is water, will eventually become the rain, always plentiful here in a good winter, sometimes coming down nonstop for days at a time, saturating the ground, filling the creeks, overflowing the storm drains, leaving puddles everywhere, which on cold, cloudless nights after storms have passed may freeze over completely, like miniature skating ponds. On one of those nights, put on a warm sweater and go outside to the front walk. Kneel down beside the frozen patch there, just beyond the gate. Lean over and put your ear close to it, and you will hear the tiny ping the ice makes when struck by starlight. That will be me saying hello. And there you have it.
Wonderful. Thank you. That was terrific. The ping of starlight, you on the frozen pond, just beautiful, Buff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You
Thank
took us from retrievers to oatmeal and Bach and China and tidying up and being in the gloaming and stars in the sky with their voices being crickets. It was quite a journey. It was just wonderful.
Thanks. Thank you so much for the chance. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for being with us. I particularly liked your describing neurons, what they lack with alacrity, they make up for with tenacity. They do that.
They do that.
God bless them. And then you also had another line about the bucket of lead hanging from a chain on your heart. That was beautiful. You lifted that. And in these times, I think we do tend to have a bucket of lead hanging from chains on our hearts. And you helped lift that up and off for us today. So thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here.
Oh, you're welcome. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today. The time went by so quickly. We get to do this again in another month on May 8th with Stan Rushworth and Andrew Fagg via Zoom. If you're on our mailing, well, you obviously are, you'll receive an invitation from Jennifer, who's with us here today. And if you have any questions or need more information, please contact our coordinator, Kent Leatham. He's at kent.leatham.poet, of course, at gmail.com. And know that we are very happy to have you with us. We are sponsored in this reading, of course, by the Consortium and also our friends at Old Capitol Books in Monterey. I would urge you to visit them when you're in town if you have the chance. Great little bookstore. And please stay in touch via Facebook. If you're not a friend of ours, please do friend us on Facebook. And please, of course, do check us out on YouTube, Monterey Bay Poetry Consortium on YouTube. Thank you so much for being with us. What I'm going to ask everyone to do is stay with us for a sec and give me a big smile, because I'm going to take a screenshot of all of us, which will then appear on Facebook. And if you don't want to do that, disappear or turn your video off. And looks like we've lost a few folks. That's great. So let me have a big smile on 3, guys, and you'll be immortalized on Facebook. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. And I'll also ask Buff and Bill to stay with us for a bit for a picture that I can take of them for Facebook. Thank you all so much. Been a great afternoon. Wonderful to see everybody, old friends and new. And we'll see you next month, May 8th, for our next reading in our monthly series. Thanks again. Take care.
Thank you again, Bob, for the wonderful emceeing every time. Always appreciate it.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And again, just Bill and Bob.